I'm Matt McClure, and this is Currents. In a country that's changing, the church is also changing.
Almost half of Catholics in this country are Latino.
Toys and clothing may not be the best Christmas gift. How about a cow?
Over 60 million people at this point have been helped by heifer.
And it's become an annual tradition. A church in Flatbush gets into the Christmas act.
God broke into our time to make himself one of us, to come to us as a man, to come to us in the form of a child.
Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Francesca Maxime has the night off. Well, if you walk into many local churches, the faces you find there may look different than they did 20 years ago. The numbers will only continue to grow, according to many who've been keeping watch on this. Last week, Francesca spoke with Peter Steinfels of Fordham University, who hosted a panel discussion called Becoming Latino, the Transformation of U.S. Catholicism. Our own Natalia Ortiz had a chance to check out that discussion earlier this week. She's now here in studio with me for more. Hey, Natalia.
Hi there, Matt. Thank you very much. Jennifer Lopez, Shakira, and Ricky Martin all made Hispanics in entertainment cool. Well, the next Latin explosion is set to take place in the U.S. Catholic Church. According to the Pew Forum on Religion and Public Life, Latinos, who are predominantly Catholic, are going to double in population between now and the year 2050, making them the largest minority in the nation. So how's the church dealing with the change? That's what panelists at Fordham University's forum on Wednesday got together to discuss.
Se habla español. Well, the U.S. Catholic Church will soon have to. That's because Hispanics will soon make up the majority of Catholics in the nation.
Latino immigrants are making up the difference for the Catholic Church that it has lost through this competitive religious marketplace that we have in this country. If you look at Catholics under age 40, almost 50% are Hispanic. So demographically speaking, it's the future of the Roman Catholic Church in this country.
Lugo, who's director of the Pew Forum on Religion and Public Life, says it will happen in the next 20 years. And many think the church needs to ramp up efforts to cater to these Spanish-language Catholics. Maria Odom, a panelist at Fordham University's recent forum, speaks from experience.
I moved here when I was 16, so I kind of broke away from the family unit, and then I had to come here and kind of find myself and my own path to a life of faith.
Odom's difficulties triggered a separation from her faith.
I had a hard time worshiping in English. I had a hard time just feeling like I belonged, and that really drove me away from the church for many years.
Once she started a family, she decided to revisit and eventually return to Catholicism. But she's convinced that it took the welcoming attitude of her parish to solidify her commitment.
Integration is a two-way road, and I am a firm believer that as Catholics, we have an obligation to engage in that exchange. The migrant comes in and shares with us who he is, where he comes from, his struggles, his hardships, the good things, the happy things, the richness of his or her culture. And we, in turn, give back by welcoming that person, by understanding where that person comes from, by being inquisitive about how we can best engage them in our community.
But why should the church care that Hispanics are the future of U.S. Catholicism?
St. Paul reminds us that when one part of the body is in need, that the whole body should pay attention. So I think the simplest answer is because they're part of the body of Christ.
If you look at all the figures, demographic analysis that we have done, already almost half of Catholics in this country are Latino. 1 out of 4 babies born in this country is Latino. That's overall for the country. That means that over half of all the Catholic newborns in this country today are Latino Catholics. So this is indeed the demographic wave of the future for the Roman Catholic Church. So whatever it does to prepare for it, it should probably get going fairly quickly.
According to the Pew Forum, one thing Hispanic Catholics bring is a different kind of spirituality. Matt, back to you.
Well, a different kind of spirituality, definitely. Also, you know, different ethnic heritage, different life experiences.
Right.
What is that different kind of spirituality? Exactly?
Well, one of the things is that a lot of Hispanic Catholics consider themselves to be charismatic worshipers, which is a lot more than, for example, non-Hispanic Catholics would identify themselves with.
Gotcha.
So that's one of the things. Another thing we actually found very interesting is that Maria Odom, who is one of the Hispanics we interviewed, who came here, as she said, when she was 16, she says it's very important not to forget that it's not just the undocumented Hispanic immigrants who need the help of the church or who need to feel welcomed by the church. It's also all types of Hispanics, and actually all types of immigrants, you know, not just Hispanics.
Right.
You know, in this case, we're talking about Hispanics, but, you know, a lot of them have trouble worshiping when it's not their language, and they leave their families behind, and as she said, are not ready to be Catholics alone.
Right.
So Catholicism really, you know, should embrace.
And that's one thing that I said that I think that she said that was also very important to the whole discussion was that it's a two-way street, you know, and that you know, you have to be welcoming, and they have to, you know, don't wait for them to seek you out. In other words, it is a two-way. It does work both ways.
Yes.
They're already in the community, so then you can welcome them in.
That's correct. That's correct.
All right, Natalia, thank you so much.
Thank you, Matt.
Well, and tomorrow is actually the feast day of Our Lady of Guadalupe, a major feast day for Hispanics. We'll be covering a celebration in Brooklyn, and we'll have a complete report coming up on Monday. Well, there's more currents coming up straight ahead. When we return, we'll have all the day's headlines, including the Pope with some strong words for Irish bishops. And a new effort to help immigrants know their rights.
Hispanic workers in this country are experiencing a much greater rate of injuries, illnesses, wage theft, and fatalities.
Welcome back to Currents. I'm Matt McClure. Coming up in just a bit, 'tis the season for tree lightings, and we'll take you to a very special one in the Brooklyn Diocese. But first, let's have a look at today's headlines. Pope Benedict is responding to the Irish clergy sex abuse scandal, and he has some tough words for Irish bishops over how the abuse allegations were handled. A statement released today by the Vatican says the Pope will release a special pastoral letter to the Catholics of Ireland over the issue, and that he shares the outrage, betrayal, and shame that they feel over the situation. There's no word on when that pastoral letter might be ready, but today's statement said that the Pope, quote, assures all concerned that the Church will continue to follow this grave matter with the closest attention in order to understand better how these shameful events came to pass and how best to develop effective and secure strategies to prevent any recurrence. Well, meantime, Americans' opinions about the honesty and ethics of clergy are at their lowest point in 32 years. Gallup's annual Honesty and Ethics Ratings of Professionals survey found just half of Americans, 50%, view the moral caliber of clergy as high or very high. That's a 6 percentage point drop from last year's survey. Gallup says the reason for the decline is unclear, but the numbers are now lower than they were at the height of the clergy sex abuse scandals earlier this decade. An historic meeting today at the Vatican. Pope Benedict sat down with Vietnamese President Nguyen Minh Triet. It was the first time that a Vietnamese head of state met with the Pope since communists took over the country back in 1954. The Holy See expressed satisfaction with the visit, saying it's a significant step for the advancement of bilateral relations with Vietnam, and hoped that pending issues could be soon resolved. Tensions have been high between Catholics and the government in Vietnam over church property that's been seized by communists. Well, as the debate over health care reform continues in Washington, some Catholic senators are coming under fire for voting against an amendment that would have placed considerable restrictions on abortion funding in the bill. 15 Catholic Democrats voted to table the amendment, effectively putting a stop to it. Among them were tri-state area Senators Robert Menendez of New Jersey and Christopher Dodd of Connecticut. Opponents of the amendment said the bill already contains significant restrictions on federal funding of abortion, but supporters say those restrictions do not go far enough. Well, yesterday in Manhattan at the Mexican consulate, an agreement was signed to help Latino and Mexican immigrants with labor complaints, and a key participant was the Catholic Migration Office of Brooklyn. A variety of state and federal agencies, including the Department of Labor, OSHA, and the Mexican consulate, agreed to set up a toll-free helpline for Latino immigrants.
This alliance that we have signed today is very, very important for the Hispanic peoples who, in particular those who live in our diocese and in the city of New York, because so many of them do not know their rights.
Housed at the Catholic Migration Office in Sunnyside, Queens, Spanish-speaking volunteers operate the phone line, which is 1-877-52-LABOR.
After receiving the call, what happens is our office does some screening to determine if a referral to an enforcement agency is appropriate.
The Mexican consulate says there are approximately 450,000 undocumented Mexican workers in the tri-state area, many of them unaware of their rights, and that makes them vulnerable to abuses. One of the most common complaints among them is unpaid wages.
Hispanic workers in this country are experiencing a much greater rate of injuries, illnesses, wage theft, and fatalities than other workers.
Seeing the need to provide better assistance to its community, the Mexican consulate in New York reached out to the Catholic Migration Office, which has been working with the Hispanic immigrant community for over 30 years.
It is clearly very important that the diocese is going to be operating the call center on two levels. On the one hand, the track record of the diocese and dealing with the rights of immigrants. And secondly, there's this element of trust of the immigrants towards the church.
All parties agree that beyond assisting immigrants with labor complaints, an important component of this service is educating them about their rights. Well, again, that phone number for the hotline is 1-877-52-LABOR. Well, parents in upstate New York are upset over restrictions placed on Christmas displays in schools there, and they're taking action. Parents in the East Syracuse Manoa School District reportedly received a letter last week saying programs or displays reflecting a singular holiday tradition would have to happen after regular school hours and could not be sponsored by the school. Well, that apparently included a display of Santa Claus, since he originated from the story of St. Nicholas. Parents in the district have started a petition to return Christmas celebrations to the district, and they also plan to bring up the issue at a school board meeting, which is happening next week. And the holidays have officially arrived. The first night of Hanukkah began tonight at sundown. Jewish children across the country and across the city here as well have been lighting their menorahs, spinning their dreidels, and receiving their gifts. They'll continue to do so for 8 nights until the holiday wraps up after December 19th. Well, stay tuned. There's much more currents coming up straight ahead. You're more likely to see them in a nativity than under a Christmas tree. How you can buy animals for needy families.
You can buy a cow, or buy a goat, or buy a flock of chicks. Every gift makes a difference.
Well, welcome back. All week we've been looking at gifts with a difference, that make a difference, ways that you can donate to charities or organizations this Christmas and give something that will have a positive impact. And if you really want to have an impact on your friends, go ahead and get their goat. I'm serious. Just make sure you get that goat from Heifer International. It's a nonprofit that's been delivering livestock to people around the world for years and having a powerful effect on countless lives. Earlier on in the week, I sat down with Chris Talbot from Heifer International to talk about the group's mission. Well, Chris Talbot is joining us now. Chris, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Matt, for having me.
We really appreciate your time today. And for those who might not know, what exactly is Heifer International and what do you guys do?
Well, Heifer International is a nonprofit organization. They've existed for over 65 years now, and what they do is they end hunger and poverty. And the way they do this is they give farm animals and training to hungry families around the world so that they have milk, wool, eggs, and all kinds of things that they can feed their families with, but also sell the surplus items for income. And with that income, they can get medicine, clothing, school fees, whatever they need to sort of get on the path to self-reliance.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, I was looking on the website a little bit earlier, and to see the map of the countries that you guys, and I think you said it was more than 50 countries.
That's right.
To see that map, it's kind of it's almost staggering because it's all around the world. So international is not just a clever name; it's true.
It's absolutely true, and I think considering the success of Heifer's work, over 60 million people at this point have been helped by Heifer. It's not known enough.
Right.
Yeah, so.
Looking for more countries to be involved in.
Oh, yeah.
Well, let me ask you this as well. Now, we're doing this, of course, as part of this series that we're doing this week on alternative gifts for the holidays.
Right.
So we say that you can that the animals go to folks who are overseas, maybe, or in this country as well. You do operate here in the U.S.
We do.
So how can people give gifts of donations to Heifer International, and how would that help and be kind of an alternative Christmas gift for folks?
Well, it's a great gift. It's a great holiday gift. People can go to heifer.org, or there's a toll-free number, which I think which people can call, and you can buy a cow or buy a goat or buy a flock of chicks. A flock of chicks is $20. A goat or a llama is $120. A cow is $500. You could buy an ark of animals for $5,000.
Wow.
Or if your budget is really tight, you can buy a portion of a cow, or every gift makes a difference. And when you make that donation, Heifer will send you this really it's a really beautiful fold-out card that you can give to your gift recipient and say, well, look, I've given a cow in your honor that will help a hungry family.
Wow.
And the card explains the story of what a cow or a goat will do. And something I want to point out here is that every gift that you give to Heifer multiplies, meaning that animals multiply.
Right.
And every recipient of an animal in the training from Heifer agrees to pass on their gift when their animal gives birth. Wow. So they will give the firstborn calf or goat or chicken to another needy family in their community, and that family will do the same. So every gift will kind of multiply and ripple outward, which I think is a factor in Heifer's success.
Wow.
There's this sort of sustainability built in.
Well, it truly is, in that case, the gift that keeps on giving.
Yes, it is.
Just keeps multiplying and multiplying. That's great.
Right.
You were telling, just before we went on the air, one of the many success stories for folks who have benefited from the work of Heifer International. Right. Tell me a little bit about that, and there's a book that tells that story as well. That's
right. I was talking about Beatrice Bira, and the book is called Beatrice's Goat, and it's available online wherever books are sold. Beatrice was a little girl from Uganda. Well, now she's a grown woman.
Right.
And her family received a goat from Heifer, and her mother had not been able to afford the school fees and the uniform and the cost of books to get Beatrice in school. But Beatrice, really bright young girl, that was her one dream and desire. And after the family received the goat, and started selling goat's milk, the mother could afford to send Beatrice to school. And this is the tragedy of so many students, so many children in the world that can't reach their potential. Beatrice could have gone on in that state and just sort of wished for school, but she got there, quickly excelled, caught up all the grades, was accepted into the best boarding school in Uganda, applied to colleges in the States, recently graduated from Connecticut College, and is now working on her graduate degree at the Clinton School for Public Service, and is currently doing an internship here in New York City with Professor Jeffrey Sachs at the Earth Institute. So, amazing the potential you unleash if you just give people a little opportunity or a leg up, a chance to prove that they can be something. You know?
It's an amazing thing. And that, of course, as I said, is just one of many success stories that are out there, and you can help be a part of that. Well, just about time here to wrap it up. One more time, how can people help, the website and any other information you want to give?
I would say people should just go to heifer.org. They can read more about the organization and hopefully support it. Buy a cow, buy a flock of chicks, and show somebody you love that you share the same values, and that you can make a better world in a very simple way.
Well, very good. Chris, thank you so much for being here today to share all this information with us. We really appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure, Matt. Thank you.
Thanks. You can give a whole ark of animals. I love that. Stay with us. We have much more Currents coming up straight ahead. Coming up, an Advent celebration brings together a diverse church community in Flatbush.
At Christmas time, for me, it's like heaven and earth comes into one. I remember who God is. I remember what God has done.
Well, finally tonight, we leave you with a burst of light in one corner of Brooklyn. People there are already in the Christmas spirit, and you'd be hard-pressed to find a more joyful expression of it than the annual tree lighting at Holy Cross Church in East Flatbush. But what you're about to see is more than just a tree being lit. This is a community coming together in a way that sheds a beautiful light all its own. Take a look.
When I first got to this parish here at Holy Cross, I said to myself, what can I do to bring people together? Since we are here a 3 communities parish, we have Hispanics, we have English community, and we have the Haitians as well. I got the people to come together and I explained to them what I have in mind. They welcomed it. They said, let's do it. This is the first time we're going to do something in the parish here. And we did it, and it was freezing cold. And then ever since then, every December, people are always looking forward for that celebration. Even not just the people from the parish here, the people from the neighborhood, they love that idea.
This event does several things. First of all, it announces the coming of Christmas. The putting up of the lights makes our church very visible in the neighborhood, so that's a very good thing. Second of all, it's one of the many events we do during the year that brings all the different languages and cultures of our parish together, and it's always good when we come together to do something. And third of all, it begins the whole imagination of the Bible story of Christmas so that we can prepare for it.
For the past 4 years, we've been having 9 lessons in Carol. And I said, maybe that's an opportunity for us, for the parishioners, to experience that event not through readings, but through act, through a drama. And for me, this is something that has blessed me. This Christmas drama, the people, when I look at them, to see how they were paying attention, how they were into it.
What I did in the play is I do 2 parts. I was in the second scene where the 2 guys fighting, and I was one of the wise men, the 3 wise men. I enjoyed it a lot.
At Christmas time, for me, it's like heaven and earth comes into one. I remember who God is. I remember what God has done. God broke into our time, to make himself one of us, to come to us as a man, to come to us as being fragile in the form of a child, a baby.
La comunidad hispana es muy entregada a Navidad. Nosotros como familiares hispanos nos entregamos a Navidad porque es la espera de Jesús. Y eso significa para nosotros una importancia de relevancia muy grande.
Out of this event, I'm hoping that they can share that light. These lights, tiny lights, these are symbols of Christ's lights in our midst. Lights that shine in the darkness of our heart, in the darkness of our world, in the darkness of our society here. We want that light to be brightened so that men's heart can be brightened and they can help each other and apply God's commandment in their life.
Well, beautiful ending there, and of course you can see the Christmas tree lighting, only part of the story there in East Flatbush. Definitely a beautiful celebration there with the pageant, the kids in all their angel costumes there. I thought that was so cool. And of course, the baby playing the coveted role of the baby Jesus. It was like, what in the world's going on? Why am I being held up here? And everybody's applauding. It was just, that was so cool to see. But a wonderful celebration of the season there. And it never ceases to amaze me how rich and how diverse Brooklyn really, really is. And there's another example of it. Well, that's it for this edition of Currents. Just a reminder, you can always catch us online. CurrentsNY.net is the website. And you can also become our fan on Facebook. Facebook.com/CurrentsNY. We'll have all the latest news there. We'll also keep you posted on what we're doing on a day-to-day basis. It's updated all throughout the day. Until next time, thank you so much for watching. For Francesca Maxime and all of us here at Currents, I'm Matt McClure. Thank you so much. Have a great night and a great weekend.